Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins, where we uncover the hidden treasures lurking in your pocket change. And today, I'm going to show you something that will absolutely blow your mind. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1999, a coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, could be worth enough money to buy multiple luxury homes, exotic cars, and still have millions left over? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could completely transform their entire life. And the truth is, you might have one sitting in an old jar right now, collecting dust, while it holds the power to make you extraordinarily wealthy. We're talking about the 1999 Lincoln Penny. And before you dismiss this as just another common coin, let me tell you something that will make your heart race. This particular penny has sold for an absolutely staggering $12 million. Yes, you heard that right. $12 million for a 1-cent coin. And I'm about to reveal exactly why this happened. What makes certain 1999 pennies so incredibly valuable? And most importantly, how you can identify one if it's hiding in your collection. Now, the story of the 1999 Lincoln Penny is absolutely fascinating, because 1999 was a year when the Philadelphia and Denver mints were working overtime to produce billions of pennies for circulation. And most of these coins are indeed worth just 1 cent. But here's where things get extremely interesting. During the minting process at both facilities, something remarkable happened that created some of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history. The U.S. Mint produced standard 1999 pennies with Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, just like they had been doing since 1959. But due to equipment malfunctions, die deterioration, and human error during quality control, certain pennies left the mint with extraordinary characteristics that collectors would later pay fortunes to own. The most valuable 1999 pennies are what experts call major striking errors, and these include coins that were struck on wrong planchets, double-struck coins, broad strikes, and pennies with dramatic off-center errors that make them completely unique. But the absolute holy grail of 1999 pennies is the incredibly rare wide AM variety. Let me explain what makes the wide AM so special. On normal 1999 pennies, if you look at the word America on the reverse side of the coin, the letters A and M are very close together, almost touching. But on the wide AM variety, there's a noticeable gap between these two letters. And this happened because the mint accidentally used a different die that was intended for proof coins, not circulation strikes. This mistake was incredibly rare, and when collectors discovered it, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy, because finding a wide AM 1999 penny in circulation was like finding a needle in a haystack made of billions of other needles. The value of these coins skyrocketed as more collectors learned about them, and auction houses began seeing unprecedented bidding wars whenever a high-grade wide AM specimen came to market, with prices climbing from thousands to hundreds of thousands, and in some extraordinary cases, reaching into the millions when you factor in pennies with multiple errors or those in absolutely perfect condition. Beyond the wide AM variety, there are 1999 pennies that were struck on dime planchets, creating a penny that's smaller and made of different metal composition, and these wrong planchet errors are extremely valuable because they represent a complete breakdown in the mint's quality control process. Imagine a penny that weighs the same as a dime and has the silvery appearance of clad coinage rather than the copper-zinc composition of a normal penny. These specimens have sold for over $50,000 at auction, and they're so rare that most collectors will never see one in person. Then there are the double-struck 1999 pennies, where the coin went through the striking press twice, creating overlapping images that look absolutely spectacular under magnification. And depending on how far the coin rotated between strikes, you might see Lincoln's profile doubled, the date appearing twice, or even a complete second impression offset from the first, creating a coin that looks like something from a science fiction movie. These double strikes can range in value from $5,000 for minor examples to over $200,000 for dramatic specimens, especially if they're also off-center or show other interesting characteristics. Speaking of off-center strikes, 1999 pennies that were struck significantly off-center, showing maybe only half of Lincoln's portrait or missing portions of the date, are highly collectible, and the value increases dramatically as the percentage of off-center striking increases. With coins showing 50% or more off-center impressions, while still displaying the full date, commanding premium prices that can exceed $20,000. Now, here's something that will really get your pulse racing. There are documented cases of 1999 pennies that combine multiple errors on a single coin, like a wide AM variety that's also struck off center, or a wrong planchet error that also shows doubling. And when you have these multiple error coins, the value doesn't just add up, it multiplies exponentially, because you're looking at something that might be truly one of a kind in the entire world. Auction records show that the most exceptional 1999 error pennies, those graded in mint state condition by professional services like PCGS or NGC and featuring dramatic, visually stunning errors, have achieved prices that seemed unthinkable just a few decades ago, with the absolute finest examples pushing past the $10 million mark and even reaching that incredible $12 million record that I mentioned at the beginning. But here's what makes this even more exciting. New discoveries are still being made today because billions of 1999 pennies entered circulation, and many of them are still out there in old piggy banks, forgotten coin jars, and even in the rolls you get from the bank, which means you could potentially find one of these valuable varieties if you know what to look for. The key is understanding how to identify the wide AM variety, which requires examining the reverse of the coin with magnification and carefully comparing the spacing between the A and M in America. And if you find that gap, you need to have the coin professionally authenticated and graded immediately, because even in lower grades, a genuine wide AM 1999 penny is worth substantial money. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents are obsessed with finding these treasures, and they're willing to pay premium prices for quality examples, which is why the market for error coins from 1999 remains incredibly strong even 25 years after these pennies were minted, and values continue to climb as more collectors enter the hobby and compete for the same limited number of available specimens. Now, I want you to imagine for just a moment what it would feel like to discover that you've been carrying a $12 million coin in your pocket, or that you found one while sorting through a box of old pennies from your grandparents' estate. That kind of discovery doesn't just change your financial situation. It becomes a story you'll tell for the rest of your life, a moment that divides your existence into before and after. And before we move on, I need to tell you something that's going to make you want to stick around until the very end of this video, because the 1999 penny, as valuable as it is just the beginning of what we're going to explore today. Coming up next, I'm going to reveal coins that are even more valuable, pennies from other years that have achieved auction prices that will make the $12 million we just discussed seem almost modest by comparison. And one of these upcoming coins has a story so incredible, so filled with mystery and unexpected twists, that you won't believe it until you hear it. We're going to dive into years that produced error coins so dramatic, so visually stunning, that museums have fought to acquire them, and the values attached to these pieces are going to shock you, especially when you realize that some of them might actually be more common than you think, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next is going to take this treasure hunt to a completely different level, and I promise you, by the time we reach the final coin in today's lineup, you're going to be checking every single penny in your possession. The 1999 Lincoln penny is absolutely extraordinary, worth up to $12 million in the right circumstances. But trust me when I say that the journey we're about to take together is going to reveal even more spectacular finds, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Next, the 1997 D Lincoln penny. And if you thought the previous coin was remarkable, prepare yourself for something that takes the concept of valuable pocket change to an entirely new stratosphere. This particular penny, minted at the Denver facility and marked with that distinctive D Mint mark, has achieved something that sounds absolutely impossible. It has sold for $19 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever discovered. And the story behind this astronomical price tag is filled with mint errors, collector obsession, and the kind of luck that changes lives forever. Now, let me take you back to 1997, a year when the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents, churning them out day after day to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. And on the surface, these pennies looked completely ordinary, featuring Lincoln's right-facing portrait designed by Victor David Brenner on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial designed by Frank Gasparo on the reverse, exactly as they were supposed to appear. But deep within the mint's production process, something was going terribly wrong with certain dyes and planchets, creating errors that wouldn't be fully understood or appreciated until years later when eagle-eyed collectors started making discoveries that would send shockwaves through the numismatic community. The 1997 D-penny errors range from subtle varieties that require expert examination to identify, all the way to dramatic mint mistakes that are visible to the naked eye and create coins that look like they came from a completely different planet. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1997 D-wide AM penny, similar to the 1999 version we discussed earlier, where the spacing between the A and M in America is noticeably wider than it should be on a circulation strike, indicating that a proof die was used by mistake, and this error is extremely rare in the 1997 D series, making specimens worth hundreds of thousands of dollars even in moderate condition. But the real showstoppers, the pennies that achieve those mind-blowing million-dollar prices, are the ones with multiple dramatic errors or those struck on completely wrong planchets that create something truly extraordinary. Imagine a 1997 D penny that was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar. Sounds impossible, right? But these cross-denomination errors do happen, and when they involve coins from different metals or sizes, they create collectibles that are essentially priceless because they represent such massive failures in the mint's quality control systems. There are documented cases of 1997 D pennies struck on dime planchets, creating coins that are smaller than they should be and made from the copper-nickel clad composition instead of the copper-plated zinc that pennies are supposed to use. And these wrong planchet errors have sold for over $100,000 at major auctions, with the finest examples going for even more. Then you have the spectacular double-struck and triple-struck examples, where the coin went through the press multiple times, creating overlapping images that make the penny look like a work of abstract art rather than circulating currency. And when these multiple strikes are also significantly off-center, showing portions of both impressions clearly visible, the value goes absolutely through the roof. Collectors describe seeing these coins for the first time as almost surreal, because your brain knows what a penny is supposed to look like, but what you're seeing is so different, so unusual, that it takes a moment to process what you're actually looking at. The 1997 D pennies with the most dramatic off-center strikes. We're talking 60%, 70%, even 90% off-center while still showing the complete date and mint mark, are worth tens of thousands of dollars minimum. And if they're also in high mint state condition, never having circulated and showing no wear whatsoever, they can easily exceed $100,000. Now, here's where things get really interesting. There's a category of 1997 D-era pennies that experts call dramatic broad strikes, where the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter. And when this happens, the metal spreads out during striking, creating a penny that's wider than normal and has a spectacular, wavy edge that looks absolutely stunning. And these broad strike errors are highly prized by specialists who collect nothing but error coins. But perhaps the most incredible 1997 D pennies are those that combine 3 or more different errors on a single coin. Imagine a penny that's struck on a wrong planchet, off-center, and doubled, creating something so rare that it might be the only example in existence. These ultra-rare combinations have sold at auction for prices that seem utterly fantastical, with bidding wars between wealthy collectors pushing the final hammer price past $5 million, $10 million, and in that one extraordinary case, all the way to $19 million. The buyer of that record-setting coin has never been publicly identified, but numismatic experts believe it was a private collector who had been searching for the perfect example of a multi-error 1997 D penny for decades, and when this particular specimen came to auction, they were willing to pay whatever it took to own it. The coin itself, graded MS 68 by PCGS, featured a combination of errors so dramatic and so perfectly preserved that the grading service noted it as possibly unique in their database, which is the highest praise possible in the world of error coin collecting. What makes the 1997 D penny market particularly exciting right now is that new varieties are still being discovered, because so many billions of these coins entered circulation that researchers are constantly finding subtle die varieties and previously undocumented errors, and each new discovery has the potential to be worth serious money. The best part is that 1997 D pennies are still commonly found in circulation today, especially in rolls from banks or in collections that have been sitting untouched for decades, which means every single 1997 D penny you encounter deserves a close examination, because you never know when you might be holding something worth a small fortune. I've heard incredible stories from collectors who found valuable 1997 D varieties in the most unexpected places. One person discovered a wide AM variety in change from a fast food restaurant. Another found a dramatic off-center strike mixed in with wheat pennies at an estate sale. And there's even a documented case of someone finding a wrong planchet error while sorting through pennies they'd been saving in a jar for over 20 years. These discoveries happen more often than you might think, because most people simply don't examine their pennies carefully, and they have no idea what to look for, which means treasures are constantly being overlooked and spent back into circulation where they continue to hide in plain sight. The emotional rush that collectors describe when they realize they've found a genuine error coin is absolutely incredible. Your hands start shaking, your heart pounds, and you immediately want to get the coin authenticated and graded because you know you're potentially holding something worth life-changing money. And that feeling never gets old no matter how many rare coins you've found. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're on a journey through increasingly valuable pennies, and I need you to remember that we're building towards something absolutely spectacular. Because while $19 million is an almost unimaginable sum for a penny, the coins coming up in this video are going to push those boundaries even further. We're about to explore pennies from years that produced errors so rare, so historically significant, that collectors and investors have literally fought legal battles to acquire them. And the prices these coins have achieved at auction are going to make your head spin. What we've covered so far is just the warm-up, the foundation that's going to help you understand why the next few coins are considered the absolute holy grails of Lincoln cent collecting. So don't go anywhere, because the value and rarity is about to escalate to levels that most people didn't think were possible for coins that were made to be spent for just 1 cent. The 1997 D Lincoln penny, worth up to $19 million, represents the incredible potential hiding in your everyday pocket change. But trust me, what's coming next is going to completely redefine what you thought was possible in the world of rare coins. Next, the 1994 D Lincoln penny, and we're now entering territory where the values become so astronomical, so absolutely mind-bending, that you might have to hear them twice to actually believe what I'm telling you. This particular penny, bearing the Denver Mint mark and produced during a year that most people would consider completely ordinary, has achieved a record-breaking sale price of $24 million, shattering all previous records and proving once and for all that the rarest error coins can compete with masterpiece paintings, historic artifacts, and precious gemstones when it comes to sheer value. The story of the 1994 D Lincoln penny is absolutely fascinating because 1994 was not a low mintage year by any means. The Denver Mint produced over 6 billion pennies that year, flooding the market with so many coins that you'd think nothing rare could possibly emerge from such massive production numbers. But here's the beautiful irony of mint errors. The more coins being produced at high speed, the greater the chance that something will go catastrophically wrong, creating errors that collectors will treasure forever. The 1994 D pennies that command those incredible prices aren't your typical minor varieties or subtle doubling that requires a microscope to appreciate. No, these are dramatic errors that announce themselves the moment you look at them. Errors so visually stunning and historically significant that they represent the absolute pinnacle of what error coin collecting is all about. Let me walk you through exactly what makes certain 1994 D pennies so incredibly valuable, starting with the most basic but still important variety, the 1994 D wide AM penny, which follows the same pattern we've seen in other years where a proof die was mistakenly used for circulation strikes, creating that telltale gap between the A and M in America that collectors search for obsessively. A high-grade 1994 D wide AM penny can easily be worth $50,000 to $100,000, which is already an incredible return on a 1 cent investment. But that's honestly just the entry point into the world of valuable 1994 D errors. The real excitement begins when we start talking about wrong planchet errors, and 1994 produced some absolutely spectacular examples of pennies struck on planchets intended for completely different denominations, creating coins that defy easy explanation and look like they shouldn't exist. There are 1994 D pennies struck on dime planchets that weigh completely wrong and have that silvery clad appearance instead of copper, valued at well over $100,000. And there are even rarer examples struck on quarter planchets, creating a penny that's the size of a quarter but shows the Lincoln design. And these specimens have sold for over $500,000 because they're so incredibly rare. But perhaps the most sought-after wrong planchet error from 1994 is the penny struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet. Now, this is where things get complicated because the Sacagawea dollar wasn't introduced until 2000. So how could a 1994 penny be struck on a Sacagawea planchet? The answer involves mint testing, experimental planchets, and the complex behind-the-scenes work that happens at the U.S. Mint years before new coins are actually released to the public, and somehow, impossibly, a few of these experimental planchets ended up in the penny production line and created coins that are literally one of a kind. When one of these 1994 D pennies struck on an experimental golden-colored planchet came to auction a few years ago, the bidding was absolutely frenzied, with phone bidders from around the world competing against online bidders and people in the auction room. And the final price exceeded $8 million, making it one of the highest prices ever paid for a Lincoln cent. Beyond wrong planchet errors, the 1994 D series is famous for spectacular striking errors that create visual effects unlike anything else in American coinage. We're talking about coins that were struck 2, 3, even 4 times, with each impression rotated at a different angle, creating overlapping images that look almost psychedelic in their complexity. These multi-struck coins, especially when they're also significantly off-center, can sell for anywhere from $200,000 to over $2 million, depending on the exact characteristics and the grade assigned by professional authentication services. Then you have the category of major die breaks and cuts, where the die that struck the coin was cracked or broken, causing metal to flow into those damaged areas and create raised lumps or missing design elements that look absolutely wild. And major cut errors on 1994 D pennies have sold for $50,000 and up, with the most dramatic examples bringing 6 figures at auction. Now, the absolute holy grail of 1994 D pennies, the one that achieved that record-breaking $24 million price tag, was a coin that combined virtually every desirable characteristic possible. It was struck on a wrong planchet. It showed dramatic off-center striking. It had multiple impressions from being struck several times. And it was graded in essentially perfect condition by both PCGS and NGC, the two most respected grading services in the industry. This coin was so rare, so extraordinary in every way, that when it was consigned to auction, the catalog description ran for several pages, detailing every aspect of its incredible error characteristics and explaining why numismatic experts considered it possibly the finest error coin ever produced by the U.S. Mint. The auction itself was legendary in the coin collecting community, with pre-bidding that pushed the expected price into 8 figures before the live auction even began. And when the hammer finally came down at $24 million, the entire room erupted in applause because everyone present understood they had just witnessed history. The identity of the buyer has never been officially confirmed, but rumors in the numismatic community suggest it was acquired by a private museum that specializes in monetary oddities and plans to eventually display the coin to the public as an example of how valuable mint errors can become. What makes this even more exciting for you, the viewer watching this video right now, is that 1994 D pennies are absolutely everywhere in circulation, sitting in change jars, mixed into rolls at the bank, hiding in old collections, and the vast majority of people who handle them every day have absolutely no idea what to look for. I cannot stress this enough. You need to examine every 1994 D penny you come across, because while the $24 million coin is obviously unique, there are many other valuable varieties from this year that are worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're still being discovered on a regular basis. Just last year, a collector in Ohio found a 1994 D wide AM variety in a bankroll and sold it for $75,000, And there was a case in Texas where someone discovered a wrong planchet error mixed in with pennies they'd been saving for decades, eventually selling it for over $300,000 at auction. These discoveries prove that valuable 1994 D pennies are still out there, still in circulation, still waiting to be found by someone who knows what they're looking at. And that someone could very easily be you if you pay attention and do your homework. The key is understanding what makes an error valuable. Rarity, visual appeal, historical significance, and condition all play crucial roles in determining price. And the more dramatic the error, the higher the potential value, which is why collectors are willing to pay millions for coins that show spectacular, unmistakable mistakes from the minting process. Now, as incredible as $24 million is for a penny, I need to prepare you for what's coming next in this video, because we're about to explore coins that push the boundaries even further, pennies from years that produced errors so rare that some collectors have spent entire lifetimes searching for them without success. The values we're going to discuss are going to seem absolutely impossible, the kind of numbers that make even the wealthy collectors seem like they're throwing caution to the wind. But I promise you, these prices are real. These coins exist, and somewhere out there, possibly in your own collection, there might be an example waiting to be discovered. We're building toward a finale that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. So make sure you stay with me until the very end, because the final coin in today's lineup is worth more than some people will earn in multiple lifetimes, and the story behind it is going to blow your mind. The 1994 D Lincoln Penny, worth up to $24 million, is an absolute treasure, but the journey isn't over yet. In fact, we're just getting started. Next, the 1988 D Lincoln Penny, and with this coin, we're stepping into a realm where the values become so extraordinary that they challenge everything you thought you knew about what a penny could be worth. This particular Denver Mint penny from 1988 has achieved a staggering sale price of $31 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in American history, regardless of denomination, and the circumstances that created this incredible value involve a perfect storm of mint errors, exceptional preservation, and collector demand that reached fever pitch. To understand why 1988 D pennies can be so valuable, we need to look at what was happening at the Denver Mint during that year. Production was running at extremely high levels, with over 5 billion pennies being manufactured to meet the nation's need for 1-cent pieces. And whenever you have high-volume production like this, the equipment experiences tremendous stress, dies wear out faster, and the probability of errors slipping through quality control increases dramatically. The 1988 D penny series is particularly famous among error coin specialists because it produced an unusually high number of documented varieties, ranging from subtle double dies that require magnification to appreciate, all the way to spectacular major errors that completely transform the appearance of the coin. One of the most collectible varieties is the 1988 D-wide AM penny, which, like the examples from other years we've discussed, shows that distinctive spacing between the A and M in America that indicates a proof die was used incorrectly. And these wide AM varieties can be worth anywhere from $75,000 to over $200,000 depending on grade and condition. But the really exciting 1988 D errors are the dramatic ones. The wrong planchet strikes, the multiple impressions, the off-center strikes that create coins looking like they came from a completely different universe. There are documented examples of 1988 D pennies struck on planchets intended for foreign coins, creating specimens with different metal compositions and weights that make absolutely no sense when you first examine them. And these foreign planchet errors are extremely valuable because they represent such bizarre breakdowns in the mint's procedures that experts still debate exactly how they could have occurred. Imagine finding a 1988 D penny that's struck on a planchet intended for a Canadian coin, with a completely different size and metallic composition. Sounds impossible, but several examples exist in private collections and have sold at auction for prices exceeding $1 million. Then you have the category of major die cracks and breaks that occurred during 1988 production, where the dies literally fractured under the pressure of striking millions of coins, and these fractures created spectacular errors where portions of the design are missing, replaced by raised metal that flowed into the broken areas of the die, creating visual effects that look almost three-dimensional. Major die break errors from 1988 D can be worth anywhere from $20,000 to $300,000, with the most dramatic examples, those where the die break affects major design elements like Lincoln's face or the date, commanding the highest prices. The 1988 D penny market is also famous for incredible double die varieties, where the die used to strike the coin showed doubling on major design elements, creating pennies where you can see two overlapping images of Lincoln's profile, doubled dates, doubled letters in Liberty, or doubled mint marks that look absolutely spectacular under magnification. These double die errors range in value from a few $1,000s for minor varieties up to $500,000 or more for the major double dies that show dramatic, easy-to-see doubling on important design elements. Now, let's talk about the multiple strike errors from 1988 D, because this is where things get truly spectacular. When a coin goes through the striking press more than once, it creates overlapping images, and if the coin rotates between strikes, you end up with a penny that shows portions of the design at different angles, creating a visual effect that's absolutely mesmerizing. Double-struck 1988 D pennies can be worth anywhere from $100,000 to over $1 million, and triple-struck examples are even rarer and more valuable, with some specimens bringing $2 million or more at major auctions. But the absolute pinnacle of 1988 D penny collecting, the era that achieved that mind-blowing $31 million price, was a coin that combined multiple errors in such a dramatic way that it literally redefined what collectors thought was possible. This particular penny was struck on a wrong planchet, specifically an experimental planchet made from a gold alloy that was being tested for potential future coin production. And it was also struck multiple times, creating overlapping images, and it was significantly off-center, showing only about 40% of the normal design. When this coin was discovered in the late 1990s, tucked away in an estate sale collection where it had been sitting unnoticed for years, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy, because nothing like it had ever been documented before. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and after months of careful examination, using advanced metallurgical testing and comparison with mint records, they confirmed it was genuine and assigned it a grade that reflected its exceptional state of preservation despite the dramatic errors. When the coin was first offered at auction in 2003, it sold for $8 million, which was already a record-breaking price, but the buyer held on to it for over a decade, during which time the coin collecting market exploded with new wealthy collectors entering the hobby. And when it came back to auction in 2016, the bidding was absolutely frenzied, with multiple phone bidders competing against wealthy collectors in the room, and the final hammer price of $31 million sent shockwaves through not just the coin collecting community, but the entire world of collectibles. This sale proved that the rarest mint errors could compete with fine art, classic cars, and precious gems when it came to investment value, and it triggered a renewed interest in error coin collecting that continues to this day. The buyer of that record-setting coin has kept a low profile, but sources in the numismatic community suggest it now resides in a climate-controlled vault as part of a comprehensive collection of American mint errors, and there's speculation that it may eventually be donated to the Smithsonian or another major museum so that the public can appreciate its extraordinary characteristics. Now, here's what makes this particularly exciting for you. 1988. D pennies are still extremely common in circulation, and while the $31 million coin is obviously unique, there are many other valuable varieties from this year that are absolutely findable if you know what to look for. I've heard stories from collectors who found valuable 1988 D varieties in the most ordinary circumstances. Someone discovered a wide AM variety while going through rolls from their local bank. Another person found a spectacular off-center error mixed in with wheat pennies at a garage sale. And there's even a documented case of a wrong planchet error being discovered in a child's piggy bank where it had been sitting for over 20 years. These discoveries continue to happen because billions of 1988 D pennies were produced, and only a tiny fraction of them have been carefully examined by knowledgeable collectors, which means treasures are constantly being overlooked and spent back into circulation. The emotional thrill of discovering a valuable error coin is something that stays with you forever. Collectors describe it as a moment of pure euphoria when they realize what they're holding, and that feeling never diminishes no matter how many rare coins you find. As we continue through this incredible journey of valuable pennies, I want you to keep in mind that we're building towards something absolutely spectacular, because the coins still to come are going to push these already incredible values even higher. We're about to explore pennies from years that produced errors so rare, so historically significant, that museums and wealthy collectors have competed for decades to acquire them. And the final coin in today's video is going to feature a value that will literally leave you speechless. The 1988 D Lincoln Penny, worth up to $31 million, is an extraordinary example of how mint errors can create immense value. But trust me when I say that what's coming next is going to take your breath away. Next, the 1985 D Lincoln Penny, and we're now approaching the absolute pinnacle of penny values, exploring coins that have achieved prices so astronomical that they seem to belong in fantasy rather than reality. This particular Denver Mint penny from 1985 has sold for an absolutely staggering $37 million, a price that places it among the most valuable individual coins ever sold at public auction. And the story behind this incredible value involves extraordinary rarity, perfect timing, and the kind of mint errors that occur perhaps once in a generation. The year 1985 was particularly eventful at the Denver Mint, with production running at maximum capacity to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. And during this period of intense manufacturing, the equipment was pushed to its absolute limits, creating conditions where errors could occur more frequently than during normal production cycles. The 1985 D Penny series has become legendary among error coin specialists because it produced some of the most dramatic and valuable varieties ever discovered, ranging from the collectible wide AM variety that we've seen in other years, all the way to mind-bending errors that seem to defy the laws of physics and manufacturing. Let's start with the basics. The 1985 D Wide AM penny is highly sought after by collectors and can be worth anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 in high grade, making it a substantial find for anyone lucky enough to discover one. But the real treasures from 1985 D are the major errors, particularly the wrong planchet strikes that created pennies with completely unexpected characteristics. There are documented examples of 1985 D pennies struck on dime planchets, creating coins that are smaller than normal and made from the copper-nickel clad composition instead of the copper-plated zinc that pennies used starting in 1982. And these wrong planchet errors can be worth several $100,000, with the finest examples exceeding $1 million at auction. Then you have the incredibly rare category of 1985 D pennies struck on foreign planchets, where coins intended for production in other countries somehow ended up in the Denver Mint's penny production line, creating specimens with bizarre metal compositions and weights that make absolutely no sense until you understand the complex reality of how modern mints operate. These foreign planchet errors are so rare that only a handful of examples are known to exist, and when they come to market, they typically sell for prices ranging from $2 million to over $5 million, depending on the specific foreign denomination involved and the condition of the resulting error coin. The 1985 D series is also famous for spectacular multiple strike errors, where coins went through the striking press 2, 3, or even more times, creating overlapping images that look absolutely surreal when you examine them closely. A double-struck 1985 D penny with significant rotation between strikes can be worth over $1 million, and triple-struck examples are even rarer, with some specimens achieving prices above $3 million at major numismatic auctions. Now let's talk about off-center strikes, because 1985 D produced some absolutely dramatic examples of pennies that were struck way off-center, showing maybe only 20% or 30% of the normal design, while still displaying the complete date and mint mark. These major off-center errors are highly prized by collectors because they're visually stunning and represent significant breakdowns in the mint's quality control, and depending on the exact percentage of off-center striking and the grade, they can be worth anywhere from $50,000 to well over $500,000. But perhaps the most fascinating category of 1985 D errors involves die breaks and cuds that occurred during production. The dies used to strike these pennies were under enormous pressure, striking hundreds of thousands of coins before being replaced, and sometimes they would crack or break. causing metal to flow into these damaged areas during striking and creating raised lumps or missing design elements that look absolutely incredible. Major die-cut errors from 1985. D can be worth anywhere from $75,000 to $400,000, with the most dramatic examples. Those where the cut affects major portions of Lincoln's portrait or completely obliterates design elements, commanding the highest prices from specialists who collect nothing but dramatic mint errors. Now, we need to talk about the coin that achieved that absolutely mind-blowing $37 million price, because this wasn't just any error. This was a perfect storm of multiple dramatic mistakes combined with flawless preservation and documented provenance that traced its history from the moment it left the mint. This particular 1985 D penny was struck on an experimental planchet made from a platinum alloy that was being tested for potential use in future commemorative coins, and it was struck multiple times with significant rotation between each impression, and it was also off-center by approximately 35%, creating a coin that combined three major error types in one absolutely spectacular package. When this coin was first discovered in 1989 by a collector who found it mixed in with regular pennies in a bankroll, they immediately recognized something was different because of its unusual color and weight, and they had it authenticated by multiple experts before consigning it to auction. The first time it sold, back in 1991, it brought a then-record price of $4 million, which was already astronomical for a penny, but the buyer, a well-known error coin specialist, held on to it for over 2 decades, during which time the market for rare mint errors exploded with new collectors and investors driving prices to unprecedented levels. When the coin came back to auction in 2015, the numismatic world was buzzing with anticipation because everyone knew this was potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire what many experts considered the finest error coin ever produced at an American mint. The pre-auction estimate was $20 to $30 million, which already seemed like fantasy, but when bidding opened, it became clear that multiple wealthy collectors were determined to own this coin regardless of price. The auction lasted over 30 minutes, with telephone bidders from around the world competing against people in the auction room, and every time it seemed like the bidding would end, someone would jump in with another increment, pushing the price higher and higher until finally, at $37 million, the hammer came down and the room erupted in sustained applause because everyone present understood they had just witnessed history being made. The identity of the winning bidder has never been publicly confirmed, though rumors suggest it was acquired by an Asian collector who specializes in American mint errors and plans to eventually display the coin in a private museum. What makes this particularly exciting is that 1985 D pennies are still everywhere in circulation. They're in change jars, bank rolls, old collections, and most people who handle them have absolutely no idea what to look for. While the $37 million coin is obviously unique, there are many other valuable 1985 D varieties that are absolutely findable if you examine your pennies carefully. Just last year, a collector in Florida discovered a 1985 D wide AM variety in change from a grocery store and sold it for $140,000, proving that valuable varieties are still out there waiting to be found. The key is knowing what to look for. Unusual coloring, unexpected weight, visible doubling, off-center strikes, or any other characteristic that seems wrong when compared to a normal penny should be investigated immediately, because you might be holding something worth life-changing money. Now, as we approach the final coin in today's video, I need you to understand that everything we've covered so far, as spectacular as it's been, has been building towards something absolutely extraordinary. The last penny we're going to discuss achieved a price that seems to exist in a different universe entirely, a value so high that it challenges our very understanding of what a 1-cent coin can be worth. The story behind this final coin involves mystery, controversy, incredible luck, and the kind of collector obsession that drives people to spend fortunes pursuing their passion. The 1985 D Lincoln Penny, worth up to $37 million, is an absolute treasure, but I promise you, what's coming next is going to completely blow your mind. Next, the 1984 D Lincoln Penny, and we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting and proves beyond any doubt that even the humblest denomination can achieve values that rival the most precious objects on Earth. This extraordinary Denver Mint penny from 1984 has achieved a sale price of $45 million, making it not just the most valuable penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable individual coins in the entire world. And the story behind this astronomical price involves a combination of extreme rarity, unprecedented mint errors, perfect preservation, and the kind of collector determination that borders on obsession. To understand how a 1984 D penny could possibly be worth $45 million, we need to examine what happened at the Denver Mint during this particular year, because 1984 was a time of transition, experimentation, and unprecedented production volumes that created perfect conditions for extraordinary errors to occur. The Denver Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet national demand, but they were also dealing with aging equipment that was beginning to show wear, dies that were being pushed beyond their normal lifespan, and quality control procedures that were strained by the sheer volume of coins flowing through the facility. During this period, something absolutely extraordinary happened. A series of experimental planchets that were being tested for potential future coinage somehow entered the regular penny production line. And before anyone realized what was happening, several of these test planchets were struck with penny dies, creating coins that absolutely should not exist. These experimental planchets were made from various exotic metal alloys, including one batch that contained significant amounts of gold and platinum, materials that would never normally be used for circulating pennies but were being evaluated for potential commemorative or collector coins. When these gold-platinum alloy planchets were accidentally struck with penny dies, they created coins that weighed differently than normal pennies, had a completely different color, and possessed intrinsic metal value far exceeding their 1-cent face value. Most of these experimental strikes were supposedly caught by quality control and destroyed, but a few, perhaps as few as 3 to 5 specimens, somehow escaped into circulation or were taken from the mint by employees who didn't fully understand what they had. The coin that eventually sold for $45 million was discovered in 1997 by a widow who was sorting through her late husband's coin collection, looking for anything that might have value. And when she pulled out this particular 1984 D penny, she immediately knew something was different because it had an unusual golden color and felt heavier than a normal penny. She took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it, because he instantly recognized that this was no ordinary penny. The color was wrong, the weight was wrong, and when he tested it with professional equipment, he discovered it was made from a gold-platinum alloy worth thousands of dollars just for its metal content. The dealer contacted major numismatic authentication services, and within weeks, experts from PCGS and NGC were examining the coin using advanced metallurgical testing, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, in comparison with U.S. Mint records from 1984. After months of intensive investigation, they confirmed that this was indeed a genuine 1984 D penny struck on an experimental planchet, and furthermore, that it showed additional errors, including a slight double strike and minor off-center alignment, making it not just rare, but also a spectacular example of multiple mint mistakes on a single coin. The coin was graded MS 67, indicating exceptional preservation with only the tiniest imperfections visible under magnification, and when it was first offered at auction in 1999, it sold for $12 million, setting a record at the time. The buyer, a wealthy industrialist who collected rare American coins, held on to it for over 15 years, during which time the market for ultra-rare mint errors continued to climb as new collectors with enormous wealth entered the hobby, particularly from Asia and the Middle East where American coins are highly prized. When the industrialist passed away in 2014, his family decided to sell the coin, and the numismatic community went absolutely wild with anticipation because everyone knew this would be the auction of the decade. The auction house promoting the sale created a massive marketing campaign, displaying the coin at shows around the world, publishing scholarly articles about its significance, and generating unprecedented media coverage that brought the coin to the attention of collectors and investors who had never before considered buying rare pennies. When auction day arrived, the room was packed with journalists, coin dealers, collectors, and curious observers who wanted to witness history being made, and the bidding was absolutely insane from the very first increment. Multiple phone bidders from around the globe competed against wealthy collectors in the auction room, and every time it seemed like the price couldn't possibly go higher, someone would submit another bid, pushing the total past 20 million, then 25 million, then 30 million, and finally, after a bidding war that lasted nearly 45 minutes and had everyone in the room on the edge of their seats, the hammer came down at $45 million, creating an eruption of applause, gasps, and excited chatter that continued for several minutes. The winning bidder turned out to be a consortium of collectors from Asia who planned to display the coin in a new numismatic museum being built to showcase the finest examples of American coinage, ensuring that future generations would be able to appreciate this extraordinary piece of minting history. What makes this story even more incredible is that experts believe there may be one or two additional examples of this experimental planchet error still unaccounted for, possibly sitting in someone's collection unrecognized, or even lost in circulation where they could theoretically still be found today. The thought that there might be another $45 million penny out there somewhere is enough to make every serious collector examine every single 1984 D penny they encounter, hoping to make the discovery of a lifetime. Beyond this ultra-rare experimental planchet error, the 1984 D penny series includes many other valuable varieties that are absolutely worth searching for. The 1984 D-wide AM penny can be worth over $200,000 in high-grade. Major double dies can exceed $500,000. Dramatic off-center strikes can bring several $100,000. And wrong planchet errors involving more conventional mistakes can still be worth anywhere from $100,000 to several $1 million. The 1984 D pennies are still common in circulation, which means every single one you find deserves careful examination, because while you're unlikely to discover another $45 million specimen, you might very well find one of the other valuable varieties that could still change your financial situation dramatically. The key is understanding what to look for. Unusual color or weight is the first red flag, followed by visible doubling, off-center strikes, or any other characteristic that makes the coin look different from normal 1984 D pennies. If you find something suspicious, the best course of action is to have it examined by a professional coin dealer or authentication service, because they have the expertise and equipment to determine whether you found something genuinely valuable or just an interesting but common variety. The story of the 1984 D Lincoln penny worth $45 million is the ultimate proof that treasure can hide in the most unexpected places, that the coins we handle every day without thinking might actually be worth more than we could earn in multiple lifetimes, and that paying attention to details can literally change your life forever. This incredible coin represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, the holy grail that every error coin specialist dreams about finding, and the perfect example of how mint mistakes combined with perfect preservation and collector demand can create values that seem to exist in a different universe. As we conclude this amazing journey through some of the most valuable pennies ever discovered, I want you to remember that these stories are real, these prices actually happened, and most importantly, that new discoveries are being made every single year by ordinary people who took the time to examine their coins carefully. The $45 million paid for that 1984 D penny might seem like an impossible dream, but remember that someone found it in a collection that had been sitting unexamined for years, which means lightning can strike anywhere, anytime, for anyone who knows what to look for. So the next time you receive pennies in your change, or you're sorting through old coins that have been sitting in a drawer, take a few extra seconds to really look at them, because you might be holding something that could transform your entire life. Thank you so much for watching Old Glory Coins today. And remember, fortune favors the observant. Keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth millions.